What is up, everybody? It's your favorite coach's favorite coach. And we've been following the Carmelo Anthony saga very closely in the last couple of weeks. Whether or not he's going to fit in with Houston, whether or not he's going to come off the bench, whether or not he's going to accept his role. I just find it a really fascinating narrative. This is almost like a redemption story for a guy who we've given a hard time to, and for good reason. Carmelo, over the last few years, has sort of embodied a pre-analytics antiquated playing style that's just proven very inefficient. It was frustrating because he seemed to refuse to adapt. Deep twos, isolations, and posting up are definitely falling by the wayside recently, and that's because they're inefficient. The questions we always discuss in our audios about him was whether or not he could adapt at this point. Had he played so many decades with that style that those habits became so deeply ingrained that he'd be unable to adapt? Or could it be an ego thing? Would he just want to be the man? And for his own legacy, does he have to win under those terms? I got to watch a little bit of his performance versus the Memphis Grizzlies in his debut for Houston, and it was very promising. I think a lot of people, including the Rockets bench, including the Rockets front office, including the Rockets starting five, are rooting for Carmelo Anthony. And we are too. There's something great about this story. Seeing him mature in his latter years to become a championship level player and a major contributor is just an awesome storyline. Anyways, in this segment of The Jump, they talk about Melo passing up a three, shooting a deep two, and then apologizing to Mike D'Antoni. This is a very significant tell about how Carmelo Anthony is going to play and fit in with the Houston Rockets. Let's take a look.
So CP3 finds Melo on the wing. Pulls up for the mid-range two, and then look, my bad. That's what he says, apologizing to the bench for passing up a three.
They don't shoot long twos over there, Melo. Come on now.
Hey, listen, he's going to have a great time this season if he abides by the philosophy. He's going to have his most efficient season in like 5 or 6 years. It is going to be fun. I mean, there's a method to the method,
right?
Like in Houston, right? Like,
absolutely, he is going to be incredibly efficient for this team. He's going to be able to spend his energy focusing on being a legitimate modern NBA player. He's not going to waste his energy taking inefficient shots like posting up, isolating, and shaking people to shoot twos. And maybe, just maybe, that's going to give him some more energy on defense. He's clearly athletic enough to play defense and at least be on par with the NBA average as a defender. However, another thing I noticed in the game is he closed out really hard on his first opportunity to. That shows that he's bought into the system. He does not have the best defensive habits in the world. He gets caught ball watching a lot and loses his man off ball. But these are still very promising signs. Houston is a well-oiled machine. They are one of the original teams to focus on analytics. All the players need to be on board for that. I picture Carmelo Anthony being a Barry Pepper from Saving Private Ryan type of player for the Houston Rockets. He is going to be a sniper and he can close. And every once in a while, sure, he can isolate on a guy who he feels he has a good matchup with. And that's going to be a great fit for this team, starting or coming off the bench. He does seem to have these deep-rooted habits from his old playing style, and that's going to be hard to break. It just is. At a certain level, if you've been playing basketball your whole life, I think he's 35 years old, maybe 34, he's going to have some of those lapses. And that's okay, as long as he's bought into the system and understands where he fits in on this roster.
he's going to benefit from this.
Without a doubt.
They are in the business of making basketball players more efficient.
Right.
And I know that's not sexy. I know that's not something you put in ad. You may, I've gotten more efficient. Like, it is going to benefit him. And as long as he can understand, he's not going to get everything he wants from the offensive buffet every night.
Right.
Like, those days are over. It's not going to be a bully ball fest.
Right, what's going to be really telling for Carmelo is on those games where he's taking maybe 5 or 6 field goals and not hitting them, and he ends the game scoring 0 points. How's he going to handle that? Is he still going to be bought in? Good snipers, guys like Steve Novak back when he was on the Knicks, Kyle Korver in his prime, guys like that have to understand if they're not hitting on a particular night, they're not going to be scoring that night. When Carmelo inevitably has a night like that, that's when we're going to actually truly understand whether or not he's bought in or not.
If he can just sort of just buy in, and I think he's going to. Like, he can have a really nice season.
Well, how?
Melo's gonna win the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he's gonna buy into the culture. He's around guys he respects. I mean, not that he wasn't last year with Russ and Paul George, but these are Chris Paul and him. We already know the history with them. And then James Harden, the reigning MVP.
is not saying is that didn't exactly go great last time, but that's okay because they have supposedly buried the hatchet and made a conscious choice.
They're older, they're mature, they're over it.
They've made a conscious choice to work together, so obviously they didn't fall into this. They weren't put together. They had to decide we wanted to move on and and be together. I'm curious though, Paul, because after the game, Melo was of course asked about that moment, and he was joking around. He had great humor about it, and he was saying, "Yeah, I mean, I know I got to try. They don't like that here. I got to try to hit. Well, okay, that pass didn't go. You talk about chemistry. They're working on it still, right? But I do want to ask though. He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I know. They love the 3 year, analytics, whatever." He goes, "But." I had the open shot doing it that way, and that is what I do. And to me, that wasn't like a selfish Melo thing. That was a truthful, players play the way they play.
Exactly, that is what he does. That playing style is deeply ingrained in his muscle memory, and those habits will reoccur. And there's nothing wrong with that. Manu Ginobili with the San Antonio Spurs was always kind of the wild card for them. His shot selection wasn't always great, but having a guy like that in a fine-tuned system is imperative because it makes the system less predictable. Melo could be something like that. They talk about analytics and people kind of rolling their eyes about it. Analytics are real. In the NBA, at the highest level, you have to buy into these analytics. In a contest where both teams can score 100, 120, 140 points, efficiency and understanding efficiency becomes a huge difference maker. And on our last Carmelo Anthony video, we're talking about how guys like Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Skip and Shannon, these guys have a lot of influence on the basketball community. And that's unfortunate because they're entertainers, they're characters, they are fabricating arguments on TV to have something to talk about. I always felt like Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal were in that same category. I love both of those guys as players. However, neither of them believe in analytics. And part of the reason for a lot of people not accepting them, I think, is because we really respect Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal. I've said this many times. Because you're a good player does not mean that you're a good general manager, a good coach, or a good analyst. You have an interesting perspective on the game, but it's very unique and it's incredibly subjective. It's a fallacy to believe that these guys know what they're talking about simply because they're former NBA greats. That doesn't make any sense. They're good at one thing, playing basketball. I was looking at some recent tweets by Isaiah Thomas about how he does not want to be trained by somebody who has not played at the same levels as him, and that the only person he really trusts as a coach is himself. And that mentality is sort of the shortcoming for players like Isaiah Thomas, guys like Allen Iverson, Steve Francis. It's also what makes them great. I guarantee you a lot of people told Isaiah Thomas he would never make it to the NBA. He's a 5'9" combo guard, the last overall pick in his draft. However, he's very stubborn, and this is due largely to the fact that he has an incredible amount of self-belief. So in other words, the same attributes that make a player great can also hold a player back. But at a certain level, these combo guards who like to dribble the ball a lot, they become inefficient, and they're going to need an objective coach or trainer or analyst to point that out to them so that they can transcend that and go to the next level and reach the higher upper echelons of NBA players.
So Paul, if you can put yourself in his shoes, how do you adjust in the moment, on the court, your whole muscle memory is playing a certain way, and thinking in the back of your head, oh, I need to do this instead.
There's no pressure on him now. He can just let it fly.
Okay, but that's kind of him letting it fly, and then you realize
but he understand, it's fun shooting a lot of threes. I mean, especially the older you get, Melo is not the guy anymore who can just get by his man consistently anymore. He's a little older. These guys are young athletes. Just let it fly. He's a great three-point shooter. It's either you get it into the paint or shoot the three, or swing it.
Does it take a while, though?
It'll take a while because adjustment is Melo's.
This is very interesting commentary because Paul Pierce is kind of the archetype player that's very similar and gets a lot of comparisons to Carmelo Anthony, except he was able to achieve higher levels of success winning a championship with the Boston Celtics because he was able to put his ego away and learn to play with 3 other great NBA players. He absolutely had to sacrifice some parts of his game, but he was that clutch 3-point shooter who, along with Ray Allen during that stretch of time, these guys were elite level closers at the highest level of competition.
Having the ball, he used to be in the ISO, he used to posting up. Now he's off the ball, and they're just saying, just let it ride. You know, no mid-range. Get it to the paint. That's all you got to think about, Melo. You know what I'm saying? You know, you don't have to worry about scoring 30, 40 points a night. Just get in your spot and we'll get it to you.
And by the way, we'll find you a couple mismatches, especially in that second unit on the switch, where you can bully a 6'4" guard, you know, from 10 feet.
Yeah, the Houston Rockets have a lot of really creative types of offenses in transition that are going to really help Melo. Initially, right now, he's sort of hanging out on the wing and catching in transition, understanding that guys like Harden are going to be able to draw a lot of attention in the middle so he can kick it back out to him. But the Houston Rockets pistol transition offense is going to be major for him because he can be a trailer and he can be a wing and he can hit threes and he can attack the basket. So pistol's essentially a transition offense where the point guard picks a side of the floor and would use a drag screen from the guard. In this case, it'd be Carmelo Anthony. As soon as Carmelo sets that screen, a trailer is going to set a flare screen for Carmelo. And due to the trends of switching in the NBA, one of those two is going to be open every single time. This will leave Carmelo Anthony completely open for an uncontested three. Or if the defense is respecting his three too much, it'll leave PJ Tucker or Clint Capella completely open under the basket. Carmelo Anthony could even be the trailer in this situation, and that 7 seconds or less offense would just be flying. Anyways, the moral of this story is Carmelo Anthony acknowledging the fact that he took a deep two and passed on a three, or, you know, continuing to move the ball. It shows that he is buying into the system. That is a great sign for the Houston Rockets. That's a great sign for their fan base, and that's a great sign for Carmelo Anthony. Should he fit in with this roster and accept a role where some nights he's not going to score very many points, and sometimes he's going to have to pass up his favorite offensive attacks, the Rockets are going to be a championship level team. In the last couple decades, I can't think of an NBA championship winning team that doesn't have veterans with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. The San Antonio Spurs are the first team that I ever heard say this. Guys with something to prove on their roster are guys who are going to do what it takes to win a championship and put their ego aside and do what's best for the team. It's hard to do that early in your career when you're the man, but at this stage in Melo's career, it's championship or bust for him, and he's going to have to adapt to the new style of basketball. Thank you guys for watching the video. I'm really excited for this. We'll keep following the story. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you guys on the next one.